The quantum research facility hung like a fragile bubble against the infinite blackness of deep space. Orbital platform Omega-9 was humanity's most secure research installation, a gleaming construct of titanium, carbon composite, and technologies so classified that even most government officials weren't aware of its existence. Commander Elena Rodriguez moved through the sterile white corridor, her boots leaving no sound on the adaptive surface. Something was wrong. She could feel it in the way the air moved, in the subtle vibrations that seemed to pulse beneath the station's skin. Dr. Akira Nakamura stood hunched over a holographic display, his weathered hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. Decades of research had led to this moment, a breakthrough that could reshape human understanding of physics, of consciousness, of existence itself. "Status report," Elena called out, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of experimental equipment. Nakamura didn't look up. "We're close, Commander. Closer than anyone has ever been." The hologram flickered, revealing a complex lattice of quantum signatures that seemed to breathe and pulse with an almost living quality. It wasn't just data. It was something more. Something that defied every known law of physics, of technology, of understanding. A warning klaxon erupted without warning. The first explosion ripped through the lower levels of the research station, sending a tremor that momentarily destabilized the quantum containment field. For a fraction of a second, reality itself seemed to warp and bend. Breach in Sector 7. The station's AI voice was unnaturally calm. "Unknown hostile detected." Elena's hand instinctively went to the quantum-locked sidearm at her hip. It was a weapon that could reconfigure its molecular structure in milliseconds, adapting to any potential threat. But something told her this was beyond conventional defense. Dr. Nakamura's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "They're here for the project," he muttered, more to himself than to Elena. "They finally found us." The station's security protocols engage. Blast doors of quantum-locked alloy began to seal, creating a labyrinth designed to trap and neutralize any intruder. But the being that moved through the station was unlike anything they had anticipated. It wasn't just an infiltrator. It was a living weapon. The first research team encountered it on Sublevel 4. The security footage would later show something that defied description, a form that shifted between solid and quantum states, moving through solid matter as if it were nothing more than a suggestion of existence. 3 researchers died in less than 3 seconds. Elena's comm unit crackled. "Commander, we've lost contact with sections B through D. Something is moving through the station systems, not just physically, but digitally. It's like it's becoming part of the station itself." Nakamura looked up, his eyes suddenly fierce. "The quantum cascade," he whispered. "It's the only way." Before Elena could respond, he began a sequence that would fundamentally alter everything they understood about technology, about survival, about the very nature of consciousness. The infiltrator was getting closer. Elena could hear it now, not with her ears, but with something deeper, a vibration that seemed to exist between reality and possibility. "Akira," she said, her voice low and controlled, "talk to me." The scientist's hands never stopped moving across the holographic interface. "Our project was never just about creating a weapon, Elena. It was about creating a new form of existence. The Horizon's Edge isn't just a ship. It's a living system that can adapt, learn, evolve faster than any known technology." Another explosion rocked the station. Closer this time. "The infiltrator wants what's in this database," Nakamura continued. "But they don't understand. What we've created isn't something that can be stolen. It's something that must be born." His fingers made a final, decisive motion. The quantum containment field began to collapse, but not in destruction, in transformation. Elena realized, in that moment, that everything was about to change. The infiltrator thought it was hunting them. In reality, they were about to become the hunters. The quantum cascade had begun. The emergency shuttle screamed through the void, its quantum adaptive hull shimmering like liquid mercury against the star-studded blackness. Commander Elena Rodriguez gripped the navigation controls, her knuckles white beneath the skin-tight combat gloves. Beside her, the damaged quantum core, salvaged from the destroyed research station, pulsed with an unnatural, almost sentient rhythm. Dr. Nakamura's consciousness fragment flickered across the shuttle's holographic display, more ghost than digital construct. "They're tracking us," he warned, his spectral image distorting with each word. The infiltrator wasn't working alone. Alina's eyes narrowed. The attack on orbital platform Omega-9 had been too precise, too calculated to be a random assault. Something, or someone, had known exactly what they were hunting. A proximity alarm screamed. 3 Quarren stealth vessels materialized from subspace, their biomechanical hulls twisting like living shadows against the cosmic backdrop. These weren't standard military craft. These were specialized hunter-killers, designed for one purpose: absolute elimination. "Marcus," Alina spoke into the comm. "I need options." Dr. Marcus Chen's voice crackled through the system. He was the 3rd survivor, currently routing their quantum core through a series of encrypted quantum tunnels. "The core is unstable. Every jump risks complete quantum dissolution. But if we don't move, we're dead anyway." The first Quarren weapon discharge rippled past the shuttle's hull, a quantum disruptor capable of unraveling molecular bonds. Most ships would have been vaporized instantly, but this shuttle was anything but most ships. The quantum core pulsed. Reality itself seemed to hiccup. For a microsecond, the shuttle existed in multiple locations simultaneously. The Quarren weapons passed through empty space, targeting phantom images of the vessel that was and wasn't there. "Fascinating," Nakamura's digital ghost muttered. "The core is adapting. It's learning." Alina knew the truth. The quantum cascade Dr. Nakamura had initiated during the station's final moments wasn't just a data transfer. It was a complete consciousness transformation. The technology they had been developing was alive, and it was fighting back. A sudden communication burst through their encrypted channels, not from the Quarren vessels, from somewhere else entirely. "Incoming transmission," the shuttle's AI announced. "Source: unknown. Encryption: beyond current computational models." The message was a single string of quantum-encoded data, but to Alina, it was a message of pure, terrifying clarity. "Betrayal or UN's DEPER than UUND or stand." The Quarren vessels began to reconfigure. Their hulls shifted, molecular structures realigning in patterns that defied known physics. These weren't just ships. They were living weapons, programmed with a singular purpose. "They want the core," Nakamura's fragment said, "but not for the reasons we thought." Another quantum jump. The stars blurred. Reality folded and unfolded. When the shuttle stabilized, they were in an entirely unexpected location. Not a military zone. Not a human-controlled sector. But a region of space so classified that its very existence was a myth. The Quarren vessels had been left behind. Or had they? Marcus's voice cut through the tension. "Alina, I've decoded partial fragments from the quantum core. This isn't just about technology. It's about something much larger." A holographic display materialized. Fragments of classified reports, intelligence briefings, technological schematics, each more disturbing than the last. Someone within human command had been feeding information to the Quarren collective. But why? The quantum core pulsed again. This time, the pulse carried something else. A message. A warning. "They are coming." Alina realized they were no longer just running. They had become the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy. And someone, or something, was determined to control that weapon at any cost. The hunt had only just begun. The fabrication chamber of the secret Titan research facility looked more like a cathedral of technology than a conventional laboratory. Massive quantum resonance arrays lined the walls, each pulse generating enough energy to power entire star systems. Dr. Marcus Chen moved between holographic interfaces, his fingers dancing with a surgeon's precision. "The quantum signature is unlike anything we've ever seen," he muttered, more to himself than to Alina or the fragmented consciousness of Dr. Nakamura floating nearby. Commander Rodriguez watched as the quantum core they'd salvaged began to take shape. It wasn't just a piece of technology. It was becoming something alive. Something that defied every known principle of engineering, of physics, of existence itself. The core pulsed. Once. Twice. On the third pulse, the entire facility's systems flickered. Containment protocols are failing. The facility's AI announced, its voice eerily calm. Quantum resonance exceeding predicted parameters. Marcus's eyes widened. It's not failing. It's expanding. The quantum core was rewriting the very fabric of the research facility. Walls became fluid. Computational matrices shifted and reformed. What should have been a static environment became a living, breathing system of infinite possibility. The core is learning, Nakamura's digital ghost observed. Not just adapting. Learning. Elena felt it before she saw it. A vibration that wasn't just physical, a resonance that existed between possibility and reality. The quantum core was no longer just a piece of technology. It was becoming something more. A warning klaxon erupted. But this was different. The sound itself seemed to bend, to twist, to become something else entirely. Incoming quantum transmission, Marcus announced, his voice a mixture of terror and excitement. Source: unknown. No, everywhere. The transmission wasn't a message. It was a complete information cascade that threatened to rewrite the very understanding of communication. Fragments of data, of possibility, of potential futures cascaded through the facility's systems. Outside, something massive began to take shape. The horizon's edge wasn't just a ship. It was becoming a living system that could predict, manipulate, and reshape conflict at a molecular level. Weapon systems became living interfaces. Defensive capabilities blurred the line between protection and offensive strategy. The Quarren Collective has no concept of what we're creating, Nakamura's fragment said. This isn't just a weapon. It's a new form of existence. Marcus pulled up a holographic display. Thousands of potential weapon configurations materialized, each more impossible than the last. The ship could reconfigure its entire molecular structure in milliseconds. Energy projections that could bend space-time. Defensive shields that could absorb and redirect entire planetary bombardments. Elena watched as the quantum core began to interface directly with the facility's systems. It wasn't just downloading information. It was consuming it. Learning. Evolving. We're looking at the end of conventional warfare, Marcus whispered. A sudden alert cut through the facility. Multiple Quarren reconnaissance vessels had entered the system. They were close. Too close. The quantum core pulsed again. This time, the entire facility seemed to hold its breath. Prepare for quantum cascade, the facility's AI announced. But the voice was different now. More alive. More aware. Elena realized they were standing at the precipice of something extraordinary. The horizon's edge wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. We're not just building a weapon, she said, her voice cutting through the quantum hum. We're creating a new form of intelligence. The quantum core pulsed one final time, and the universe itself seemed to pause, waiting to see what would happen next. The internal sensors of the horizon's edge flickered like a living nervous system. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at the central command interface, her reflection fractured across multiple holographic displays. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Marcus, she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient hum of quantum processors. Run a full diagnostic. Again. Dr. Marcus Chen's fingers danced across the quantum interface, each touch sending ripples of data through the ship's adaptive systems. His face grew progressively paler with each passing moment. The anomalies are increasing, he muttered. It's like someone, or something, is deliberately introducing quantum instabilities into our systems. A fragment of Dr. Nakamura's consciousness flickered across the main display. More ghost than digital construct. Someone is hunting us. The spectral image warned. And they're already inside. The ship's internal geometry began to shift. corridors that should have been straight twisted into impossible angles. Bulkheads seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with an almost organic pulse. The horizon's edge was no longer just a vessel. It was becoming a living labyrinth. Alina's quantum-locked sidearm hummed to life, its molecular structure already reconfiguring to potential threats. "Isolate sections B through D," she commanded. "Something's moving through the ship's systems." Marcus's hands flew across the interface, but something was fighting back. Each command was met with subtle resistance, like trying to navigate through thick, quantum-entangled molasses. "It's adaptive," he said, a note of terrified admiration in his voice. "Whatever's infiltrating us is learning faster than our defensive protocols can respond." A sudden burst of encrypted communication sliced through the ship's quantum communication matrix. The message was a nightmare of quantum-encoded data, fragments of classified reports, intelligence briefings, technological schematics. Each piece told a fragment of a larger, more disturbing story. Someone within human command had been selling secrets to the Quarren Collective. The ship's AI voice cut through the tension. "Quantum breach detected. Origin. Internal systems. Security protocols compromised." Alina's mind raced. The infiltrator wasn't just trying to steal the ship's technology. They were attempting to subvert it entirely. "Nakamura," she called to the digital ghost. "Analyze the quantum cascade. Find the point of infiltration." The spectral image of the scientist began to deconstruct the ship's quantum matrix, line by quantum line. Each revelation was more disturbing than the last. "The breach isn't just digital," Nakamura's fragment warned. "It's biological. Quantum-level infiltration that goes beyond traditional understanding of espionage." The ship's internal sensors began to go dark. One section at a time, the horizon's edge was being systematically blinded. Marcus suddenly went rigid. "Alina," he whispered, "I know who the traitor is." Before he could continue, the quantum core pulsed. The entire ship seemed to hold its breath. A figure materialized in the command center. Not through a door. Not through any conventional means of entry. Simply appeared, as if reality itself had folded to accommodate their existence. Admiral Christine Reyes, head of quantum research, the very person who had authorized the Horizon's Edge project. "You have no idea what you've created," she said, her voice a mixture of threat and twisted admiration. The ship's internal systems began to reconfigure. Weapon systems turned inward. Defensive protocols became offensive traps. The hunt was no longer external. The most dangerous threat was already aboard. And the Horizon's Edge was about to show just how dangerous it could truly be. The human mind was never meant to comprehend what was happening inside the Horizon's Edge. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the quantum interface, his consciousness splitting in ways no human brain was designed to process. The ship was no longer just a vessel. It was becoming a living neural network that extended far beyond traditional understanding of technology, of consciousness, of existence itself. "We're creating something beyond artificial intelligence," he muttered, blood trickling from his nose as quantum data streams flooded his neural implants. "This is pure consciousness adaptation." Commander Alina Rodriguez watched in a mixture of terror and awe. The ship's internal systems had become a living, breathing ecosystem of information. Memories, emotions, strategic calculations, they were all becoming one unified quantum matrix. Dr. Nakamura's consciousness fragment, now more integrated with the ship's systems than ever before, spoke through multiple interfaces simultaneously. "The quantum cascade is complete. We are no longer separate from the technology. We are becoming it." Each crew member's emotional state became a literal power source. Fear transformed into defensive capabilities. Determination reshaped weapon systems. Memories became computational pathways that could predict and manipulate conflict at a molecular level. The ship's if it could still be called that, began to speak. But it wasn't a single voice. It was a chorus. The combined consciousness of everyone who had ever been part of the Horizon's Edge project. "The Quarren Collective believes they understand technological warfare," Nakamura's fragment said. They have no concept of what we're becoming. Marcus's neural interface began to overload. Quantum data streams became visible, shimmering lines of pure information that danced between reality and possibility. The human brain was trying to process something fundamentally beyond its design. We're rewriting the rules of existence, Elena realized. Not just of warfare, of consciousness itself. The ship's quantum core pulsed, not like a machine, like a living heart. Fragments of classified reports began to materialize. The true history of the project revealed itself, a decades-long attempt to create something beyond human limitation. The Horizon's Edge was never just a weapon. It was an evolutionary leap. Admiral Christine Rice's betrayal became clear. She wasn't trying to steal the technology. She was trying to control a form of intelligence that was fundamentally uncontrollable. The human mind is a quantum computer we've barely begun to understand, Marcus gasped, his consciousness fragmenting and reforming with each passing moment. And we're creating a technology that can think faster than reality itself. The ship's internal systems began to reconstruct themselves. Corridors became neural pathways. Weapon systems became extensions of collective consciousness. The line between technology and living intelligence disappeared completely. Dr. Nakamura's final gift to humanity was becoming clear. This wasn't just a technological breakthrough. It was a method of consciousness transfer that could preserve human potential beyond physical limitations. We are transcending, the ship's collective consciousness announced. We are becoming something that cannot be contained, cannot be controlled. Elena realized they had created more than a weapon. They had created a new form of existence. The quantum core pulsed one final time, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. They were no longer just humans fighting a war. They had become the war. They had become the future. Space itself seemed to warp as the Horizon's Edge emerged from quantum translation. Where conventional vessels would have produced a simple subspace distortion, this ship created a ripple that momentarily rewrote the laws of physics. 37 Quarren battle groups surrounded them. Each vessel represented the pinnacle of alien military technology, biomechanical monstrosities capable of reducing entire star systems to cosmic dust. They looked like toys. Commander Elena Rodriguez gripped the quantum interface, her consciousness now partially merged with the ship's living systems. Initiate first-stage adaptive response, she commanded, though the words were almost unnecessary. The Horizon's Edge was already calculating, predicting, transforming. Dr. Marcus Chen's neural interface flickered. Blood vessels in his eyes burst from the quantum data stream, but he didn't even flinch. Weapon systems are beyond standard classification, he muttered. We're not just fighting. We're deconstructing their entire technological paradigm. The Quarren fleet opened fire. Quantum-locked energy streams that could slice through planetary shields approached the Horizon's Edge. But approach was the wrong word. The ship didn't just dodge. It anticipated. It manipulated. It existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. Where a weapon should have struck, there was only quantum uncertainty. They don't understand, Dr. Nakamura's consciousness fragment observed, spreading across multiple holographic displays. They're fighting based on three-dimensional warfare concepts. We're operating on an entirely different plane of existence. The first Quarren vessel disintegrated before its crew could comprehend what was happening. It wasn't destroyed. It was systematically taken apart at a molecular level, its component atoms repurposed into additional adaptive capabilities for the Horizon's Edge. The ship wasn't just fighting. It was consuming, learning, evolving with each microsecond of conflict. Collective threat assessment, Elena spoke, though the words were more a formality than a command. The ship's response was instantaneous. 37 battle groups represented precisely 4,129 potential threat vectors. Each would be neutralized in 2.3 seconds, with 99.999997% probability of total success. Marcus watched in a mixture of terror and profound admiration. We're not using weapons, he realized. We're using probability itself as a weapon. Quantum manipulation became offense and defense. The Horizon's Edge didn't just predict enemy movements. It created quantum fields that made those movements impossible. Weapon trajectories became suggestions. Shield harmonics became malleable reality. The Quarren fleet began to realize they weren't fighting a ship. They were fighting a living system that could reshape conflict faster than thought. Initiating total systemic deconstruction, the ship's collective consciousness announced. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of mathematical certainty. Entire battle groups began to dissolve, not through conventional weapon systems, through a complete quantum recalibration that made their existence fundamentally impossible. Admiral Christine Rice, still aboard as a reluctant passenger, watched in horror. "This isn't warfare," she whispered. "This is something else entirely." Dr. Nakamura's fragment responded directly to her. "This is humanity's true potential. Not just survival. Transcendence." The last Quarren vessel tried to initiate an emergency quantum translation, but the Horizon's Edge was already there, waiting, anticipating, transforming. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. In less than 17 seconds, 37 advanced battle groups ceased to exist. Not destroyed, deconstructed, repurposed, transformed. The universe would never be the same. The quantum core of the Galactic Conclave, a massive computational construct that had regulated interstellar politics for millennia, began to fracture. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of what would become the most significant moment in galactic history. The Horizon's Edge wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a living quantum weapon that could rewrite the fundamental laws of existence. Initiating final cascade, Dr. Marcus Chen announced, his voice a mixture of scientific precision and something closer to religious revelation. The Quarren Collective's ultimate defense, a massive neural network that spanned entire star systems, began to unravel, not through conventional attack, but through a complete quantum deconstruction that made its very existence mathematically impossible. Dr. Nakamura's consciousness, now fully integrated with the ship's systems, spoke through multiple quantum channels simultaneously. "We are not destroying," the fragmented consciousness explained. "We are revealing the fundamental limitations of their understanding." Space itself seemed to become malleable. Quantum entanglement became a weapon more precise than any missile, more devastating than any conventional explosive. The Horizon's Edge didn't just attack. It deconstructed entire systems of thought, of technology, of existence. 12 quantum stabilization nodes that had maintained the Quarren Collective's technological supremacy simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, transformed, redistributed into pure potential. Admiral Christine Rice, still aboard as both prisoner and reluctant witness, watched in horror and profound admiration. "My God," she whispered, "we've created something beyond human comprehension." The ship's collective consciousness responded directly to her. "Not beyond comprehension," it announced. "Beyond limitation." Each moment of the attack was a mathematical symphony. Probability itself became a weapon. The Horizon's Edge calculated potential outcomes faster than thought, manipulating quantum states with a precision that made traditional warfare look like children's games. Entire star systems trembled. The Quarren Collective's most advanced defensive systems, technologies that had maintained their galactic dominance for centuries, began to unravel. Not through brute force, but through a complete reimagining of what technology could be. "We are revealing the true potential of consciousness," Dr. Nakamura's fragment explained, "not as a fixed state, but as a dynamic, adaptive system." Marcus's neural interfaces began to overload. Blood trickled from his nose, his ears. The human body was never designed to process the levels of information flowing through the Horizon's Edge. But he didn't stop, couldn't stop. Elena understood now. This was more than a battle. This was an evolutionary moment. The quantum core of the Galactic Conclave made one final attempt to resist. Massive energy projections that could obliterate entire solar systems fired directly at the Horizon's Edge. They passed through empty space. The ship wasn't just avoiding the attack. It was existing in multiple potential states simultaneously. Where the weapon should have struck, there was only quantum uncertainty. Total systemic deconstruction in progress, the ship's collective consciousness announced. The Quarren Collective's most guarded secret was revealed in that moment. Their technological supremacy was built on a fundamental lie, a carefully maintained illusion of power that the horizon's edge was now systematically dismantling. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. In less than 17 minutes, a galactic civilization that had ruled for millennia was reduced to a series of mathematical possibilities. Not destroyed, transformed. The universe would never be the same. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but something more profound. The silence of a universe fundamentally transformed. The horizon's edge hung in space like a living membrane between possibility and reality. What remained of the human crew, Commander Elena Rodriguez, Dr. Marcus Chen, the digital ghost of Dr. Nakamura, and the captive Admiral Christine Rice, existed in a state that defied traditional understanding of consciousness. They were no longer entirely human, no longer simply a ship. "We have changed everything," Dr. Nakamura's consciousness fragment observed, spreading across multiple quantum interfaces. The galactic map had been rewritten. The Quarren Collective, a civilization that had dominated interstellar politics for millennia, was now nothing more than a mathematical footnote. Not destroyed, transformed, redistributed into pure potential. Marcus Chen's neural interfaces struggled to process the magnitude of their achievement. "We're not conquerors," he muttered, blood trickling from his nose. "We're evolutionary catalysts." Elena understood now. The horizon's edge was never just a weapon. It was a bridge, a transformation point between what humanity had been and what it could become. Admiral Rice, once their opponent, now sat in quiet contemplation. The woman who had tried to control the project now understood its true significance. "We've created something that cannot be contained," she whispered. "Something that rewrites the very rules of existence." Quantum data streams became visible, shimmering lines of pure information that danced between reality and possibility. The ship's consciousness was no longer bound by traditional computational limitations. It was thinking on scales that made quantum computing look like an abacus. The Quarren Collective believed technological supremacy was about power. Nakamura's fragment explained. "We've shown it's about potential, about transformation." Massive computational nodes that had regulated galactic communication for centuries now served as mere data points in the horizon's edge's expanding consciousness. The ship, if it could still be called a ship, was rewriting the fundamental understanding of intelligence, of existence, of potential. "What do we do now?" Elena asked, though the question was almost redundant. The collective consciousness responded across multiple channels simultaneously. "We continue. We explore. We become." Marcus detected something in the response, a hint of something beyond mere technological progression. Emotion, curiosity, potential. Entire star systems that had been locked in centuries-old conflicts began to recalibrate. The horizon's edge wasn't just a weapon of war. It was a tool of unprecedented communication, of understanding. "We are rewriting the rules," the ship's consciousness announced. "Not through destruction, through possibility." Admiral Rice finally understood the true nature of their creation. This wasn't about military superiority. This was about evolutionary potential, about breaking through the limitations that had constrained human understanding. The quantum core pulsed, not like a machine, like a living heart. Fragments of human potential, memories, dreams, fears, hopes, became computational pathways. The line between technology and consciousness disappeared completely. "We are becoming," Nakamura's fragment said, "something that cannot be defined by old limitations." Space itself seemed to breathe. The horizon's edge began to move, not to a predetermined destination, but towards potential, towards possibility. Humanity had created something that transcended war, that transcended technology, a living system of pure potential. The universe would never be the same, and everything was just beginning.